Whoo, what's happening, fam? L.A.R movement still moving. Book entitled Lessons from a Non-Custodial Father, Amazon Kindle Create Space. The political back and forth. I was on a hangout uh, last week, a few days ago, with O'Shea Duke Jackson. And part of the hangout, we talked about politics. And the funny thing about it is, we talked about how when Democrats are in charge, or well, let's say when liberals have the power, conservatives go wild. When conservatives have the power, liberals go wild. And what I mean by that is, you know, one party may get the politics, and that boosts up the other party with the people, and vice versa. And I bring that into this conversation because uh, I saw that Tommy Lauren got fired, and I said back in that video that, you know, because Trump is the president. Republicans have the House and Senate, so everything's Republican. They're going Supreme Court is going to be pretty much conservative. You know, it's not. That's a fact. Um, but the people are going in another direction, and I was saying that to say because of they can have the conservatives and the right and the far right and the Tea Party and the alt right and all that. But all of those factions are not really going to have the people because of balance. When the, when even when somebody has the power politically and the balance, the people are not going to agree with it because it's too far. You know, whether that's in power, ideology, um, policy, or just emotion and feeling of just American rebelliousness, or just rebelliousness in period, or just the need for balance. Because now that the Republican Party has the political aspect of it, you also got to say, so what's the use of people like Rush Limbaugh now, and what's his name, Bill O'Reilly, and Glenn Beck at the time. I don't know if he's still like how much can Fox News really say now? You know, how much a young conservative like Tommy Lauren, how valuable is she now? Because she's not speaking out against the liberals, and which was the former President Obama. Your voice is not as loud when your party has that slot. This is why I say, um, people like the Young Turks, or other people who feel are liberals politically, they're gonna have more not political, but sway with the people, because the people want to hear what they have to say. Because all the people who don't like the conservative direction are going to be on the side of the people who they feel are speaking for them, will probably be considered liberals, whether they're liberal or not. You know, that's what I. That's why I say, um, even though all of the quote unquote black faces were fired because the former president was black, so there's no need for black people's face as of some type of political representation. Because remember, the Tea Party, uh, the far right, all of that stuff was under Obama's presidency. So it was one thing that was in disagreement with Democratic policies, which spawned into Republican policies, and there were certain things about people's racial issues with seeing, the black people gonna be taking over. They became the president and all that type of stuff. So you had all these extra factions because, you know, with every action there's an equal and opposite reaction. So the question is gonna be answered soon, because at the end of the day, they're not. People are unsure what the Republican Party is doing because they really ain't been in office. It hasn't even been 100 days. So you don't. So Democrats, liberals, or whatever you want to call it, they don't know who to put up to as their equivalents, or as their liberal Rush Limbaugh equivalent, or liberal Bill O'Reilly equivalent, to quote unquote combat this Republican or conservative or alt-right ideology, because every little different faction of conservatism is going to have a different faction of somebody on the left, or liberal, or alt left. I don't fucking know. Like, there's going to have a different section to fight against it. So, and it's always been that way. It's always been that way. Like, part of history in American politics is the fact that when you know politics goes this way, the people go this way. Then the people from this way, then they get the politics they want, they vote in who they want, and they go this way. Then the people go this way. It's always been that way, and it's always going to be that way. So, with her being fired, and the Milo thing, like, and some of these are just self-inflicted wounds. Don't get it twisted. But if if Hillary Clinton was the president, they wouldn't have fired Tommy Lauren. If Hillary Clinton was the president, they would have covered up for Milo. But since at least they have their party in power, don't need you bringing a stain to the party. We're not covering up your mess because we got what we want. You're dragging us down with your shenanigans and with your drama. So on the other side, if they had people who were Democrats or liberals or on the left or whatever, and they were to be, have the histories and track record of a Rush Limbaugh outside of work, they would probably cover their nonsense up too. The same track like with Bill O'Reilly's track record, they would cover that up too. Like, remember when Rudy Giuliani was talking, you'll cover that up too. As a matter of fact, how often do you hear the name like Rudy Giuliani now, or um, Geraldo? As a matter of fact, let's go a little further. You know, Obama was the president. Chicago, 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 Chicago. People live in cities where murders happen all the time, and they was talking about Chicago, Chicago. What about Chicago? What about down the street from you? Yeah, kind of, yeah. But now, what are people talking about now? Heroin, heroin, heroin. So now um, the angst and animosity and the spotlight is on the community, that community of white people in general, because that's, you associate white people who vote against their own economic interests, who didn't want Obamacare, who had an issue with black people, who who are in some ways, whether it's financially or just racially alone, suffer from affluenza, and how they go too far with their antics and wind up destroying themselves with this particular administration. So you're going to constantly see, heroin, opioids, overdoses, more white people get arrested for crimes, these hate crimes popping up, because now it sways the narrative some more. Like, you see, oh, guess those liberal, Chicago kids aren't so bad after all. When you guys been ODing, now they've been on drugs this whole time. It's just been increasingly getting worse. But now they get the spotlight because of the political back and forth. So, I'm out. Peace.